Hello everyone, peace be with you wherever you are. I hope you're doing well. We're back with a discussion regarding the homeland, the motherland, my mother's land, Eritrea. So we've been using the book Eritrea Root Causes of War and Refugees by Mr. Walde Jesus Ammar. And we have traveled quite far up until now, and we're still traveling, understanding what Eritrea is. So we went over we had gone over the Italian occupation. We went over what happened afterwards, the British trusteeship, which was an occupation in itself. We spoke about what decisions the major political actors were coming up with. Also decisions, just different decisions that they were trying to come up with in order to come to a solution to what would be done with the land, with Eritrea. So we met Mr. Toynbee, who said that there should be a kind of partition. His partition was that basically the western part of Eritrea, he didn't mention anything about religion. The western part of Eritrea should be with the Sudan. Everything else should be under one of the four powers. And then Stephen Longrig, who was the governor of Eritrea, the administrator of Eritrea, he said that the Muslims of the western part of Eritrea should be with the Sudan, and the Christians, Saho, and the Samhar tribes should be, and Masawa, the port of Masawa should join Tigray, should become one with Tigray. And as far as the Danakil area, Dankalia, the Afar inhabited region, should be assigned to the emperor. So we talked about that. We mentioned what was going on amongst Eritreans. There were unionists and there were independentists, both of them. So these were the two major groups. Although though Eritrea would have 15 groups, they would have like the Liberal Progressive Party. There were other parties too, but that's one that I remember that was mentioned. They had the Liberal Progressive Party and I can't even remember the other parties, but there were other parties. I know I think there was I don't know if the independent, no, that wasn't a, yeah. So there were different parties. There was, I remember there was a party that was pro Italy, and then there was the Liberal Progressive Party. There was the Muslim League. There were the union. There was the Unionist Party, and there were others as well, which I can't remember. But as far as that being the case, the Eritreans had obviously become politicized. Their opinions and what the Eritreans wanted was not taken into consideration, because majority of Eritreans wanted independence. That's not what was given to them. So we went over what the ultimate solution was. And the ultimate solution was that Eritrea was the so-called resolution 390A parenthesis V parenthesis, and that was the so-called resolution. They call them resolutions, but it was not a resolution, which would give Eritrea, rather it would cause Eritrea to become a part of a federation with Ethiopia. And that's where we left off. So it was a foul end. It was for the interests of the West the interests of the U.S. And so where we left off last time is we talked about many different people that were involved in this situation, different countries such as France and the U.S., the U.K., and many other countries that would be involved in. They called it the. It was an investigation. It was an investigation. People would go and they would assess the matter in Eritrea, and then they would come back and they would but they would come back with no resolution. And then the UN Commission of Inquiry, which consisted of representatives from Guatemala, Pakistan, Burma, South Africa, and Norway, they visited Eritrea. So some of them were pro-federation, some of them were not, if I'm not mistaken. Yeah, so the Guatemala and Pakistan proposed independence. Burma and South Africa suggested a federal arrangement. Norway said that Eritrea should be united with Ethiopia. So you had these different views. Everyone's trying to decide matters for us Eritreans. And so it was quite a roller coaster. And it was a roller coaster that just had a lot of loops and turns and I think this was, I don't like roller coasters, but I think this roller coaster would have outdone the roller coasters you find in amusement parks. In any case, so what we read that John Foster Dulles, the Secretary of State back in 1952, Secretary of State of the U.S., what he was quoted to have said is, "From the point of view of strict justice, the opinion of the Eritrean people must receive consideration. Nevertheless, the strategic interests of the U.S. and the Red Sea Basin and world peace make it necessary that the country be linked with our ally, Ethiopia." And that's on the report of Ethiopia, Market Intelligence Report, Greenwich, Connecticut, February 1977, page 2. So this is what was said. It was a matter of interests, but not interests of the Eritreans, interests of the U.S. Because what the U.S. wants is what's important. It's not about anyone else. It's about us. When I say us, I don't mean me as an American. I mean us as in the U.S. government. It's a narcissistic government. It's always been this way. So now people complain about Trump and stuff like that. It's like, I was a lot younger when Bush was president, but I remember what happened when he was president. It's like they forgot about Bush, and it's like they disregard Obama's crimes in other countries, killing people with drones and whatnot. They forget about these things, and then Trump all of a sudden is the villain. No, he's a villain, yes, but there have been villains before him. He's not. Biden is a villain. Trump is a villain. Kamala is a villain. Bush is a villain. I mean, when I was a kid, I don't remember Clinton. I remember he did something stupid that I'm not going to mention, but I don't know what his ways were. I remember though that life was much more relaxing during his time. I don't remember people stressing out, and I don't remember anything about that. So it's always about the U.S.'s interests. It's always about the West's interests. This is relevant because it had an effect on Eritrea. It had an effect on Eritrea. For those who are Tigrayan, by the way, who are watching this, Tigray, in my understanding, the TPLF had an alliance with the U.S. I think they still do. My question for you, people of Tigray, and I ask you this as a neighbor and as a brother, I ask for those people of Tigray, where was the U.S. when Eritrea and Abiy were demolishing your country, your region? Where were they? Where was the U.S. to support you? Nowhere in sight. Where were they? Where were they? Where were the British? Where were they? Where were they? Did you know, by the way, that there you can find the articles that some Tigrayans were airlifted from Tigray and taken to Israel during the war? In any case, where was the U.S.? This isn't about hating America. This isn't about chanting slogans like "Death to America." No, this isn't about that. This is about policy. Where were they when you guys were suffering? Your allies. Nowhere to be found. It's important that when people have, a situation, they choose their allies wisely. Because I know we're talking about Eritrea, but very quickly, I just want to bring something up. Yesterday, I was continuing reading Dr. Alam Sagad Abbai's book, Identity Jilted, which is a good book. It's an interesting book. There are things I don't agree with, but that's fine. We don't have to agree on everything. So the thing about Tigray is that it suffered in the past. After Johannes was killed and Menelik came in, Tigray was under a kind of siege. So a socio-political siege, psychological siege, cultural siege. It was under a siege. And they were fighting each other. It reminded me of what happened recently. So I'm not criticizing, but rather I'm saying that when a person wants to choose an ally, he has to be careful with who his allies are. I'm not saying go with Isaias. I didn't say that. I'm against Isaias. But your ally, those people who you called your allies, they betrayed us, Eritreans just north of you. What makes you think they wouldn't have betrayed you? What makes you think they are not betraying you as we speak right now? So, the last thing that we read before we moved on is that the American position was perfectly in line with Emperor Haile Selassie's memo of the 10th of March 1949 to the State Department promising USA military facilities in Eritrea, but only after that area has been ceded to Ethiopia. If that area has been ceded to Ethiopia, we promise U.S. military facilities in Eritrea. My understanding is that would give Haile Selassie a kind of peace of mind that no one would, do anything against him. Perhaps like a kind of, like a guard, kind of protection, a buffer zone, a cushion, whatever you want to call it, shield. That's my understanding. Few could miss the point. It was a naked ploy, like that over Palestine. America was acting on clear political expediency, sacrificing both justice and the opinion of the Eritrean people in exchange for military advantages in its Cold War strategies. That's where we left it. So America is what one of the main factors that let Eritrea down. It cost Eritrea 30 years of revolution. So the American policy, whichever one sides with that policy, is against Eritrean policy. I'm an American and I'm proud to be an American. I'm proud of justice. I'm proud of fairness. But I'm not proud of hypocrisy and I'm not proud of injustice anywhere in the world, even if it's my part of the world here in America. I'm an American and I'm proud to be an American. But I'm not proud of injustice. It's anti-American to be proud of injustice. It has to be with liberty and justice for all. With liberty and justice for all. Just like they used to have us do right hand over your heart and facing the flag, I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America. And then at the very end, and with liberty and justice for all. So now we begin with chapter 3. Chapter 3 is Federation. Prelude to War of Liberation. Federation, Prelude to War of Liberation. I'm going to tell you guys that page 33 of this book PDF is missing. It's not to be found, at least on the site. I checked. I triple checked. I couldn't find the book on any other site. I quickly, tried to find maybe another site that might have the book. I couldn't find page 33. So, but it's okay. We can still make do. No worries. So, before anything, I begin in the name of God, the compassionate, the merciful. I praise and I glorify him as he ought to be praised and glorified. Let's begin. Chapter 3, Federation, Prelude to War of Liberation. We're getting closer now to the liberation and the war for liberation. The preceding chapters indicated the concretization of a general sense of Eritrean peoplehood and the political structure for a well-defined geographical area. The present chapter aims to link the old with the new causes of the conflict and shall examine A, the salient provisions of the Federal Act, B, Ethiopia's violations of the international instrument, and C, the external factors like decolonization and the rise of Arab nationalism under Egypt's Jamal Abdel Nasser, which, among other things, necessitated the commencement of the armed liberation struggle in Eritrea. So this is what we're going to talk about now. Now we have reached the point where Eritrea is now able to walk on its own. It can walk, it can talk, and very soon it's going to be able to defend itself. A, Eritrea's federal status. The independentists and the UN member states the independentists and the UN member states which supported the draft resolutions on Eritrea's eventual independence expressed their dismay at the triumph of the weak federal arrangement, which was further diluted to satisfy the aims of other interested governments. So the independentists, those who wanted independence, and the UN member states which supported the draft resolutions on Eritrea's eventual independence, expressed their dismay. They were not happy at the triumph of the weak federal arrangement, which was further diluted to satisfy the aims of other interested governments. The kind of federal authority remotely envisioned by the resolution was dropped during the implementation process. The UN Commissioner for Eritrea, Dr. Anze Matienzo, started to do his utmost to install a large measure of autonomy in the territory, in Eritrea. He was telling Eritreans and other interested parties, it says partied, but I believe it's a mistake, parties, and other Eritrean parties, he was telling Eritreans and other interested parties during his pre-implementation consultations. Let me say that again in case I lost anyone. He was telling Eritreans and other interested parties during his pre-implementation consultations that the letter and the spirit of the Ethio-Eritrean Federation, as sponsored by the United Nations, was a middle-of-the-road plan which should give satisfaction not only to those who want to be united with Ethiopia, but to those who want Eritrea to be independent. Quoted in Travaskis. So he was saying that it's going to be, you guys are going to be satisfied. That's what he's saying. Well, that's what he said. So let's, so 33 is not available, but I will continue on page 34. As they say, the show must go on. So sorry, by the way, if I seem too serious. It's been a hot day. It's been a really hot day. I don't know how I would fare in a place like Karan, where my family is from, because Karan, I believe, can get quite warm, although it may have its winters. I haven't heard. I forgot what the Karan climate can be like in different parts of the year. I do know that the coast is hot, and the very hot, that is at least the Asa part, and but the highlands have a climate that I might be better able to work with, and God knows best. So yeah, the heat, I I grew up in fog, so I grew up in fog, and weather was never too hot. I could never get used to the heat, even though I've been under it for many months, years in fact. So in any case, so we are going to jump to page 34, and it mentions here that a UN panel of jurists meeting in Geneva, partly read, I don't know, it's some piece of writing that involves the UN. It reads, the Federal Act and the Eritrean Constitution will still be based on the resolution of the UN, and that international instrument will retain its full force. I believe the UN, will retain its full force. That being so, if it were necessary either to amend or interpret the Federal Act, only the General Assembly, as author of that instrument, would be competent to take decision. Again, if it were necessary to either amend or interpret the Federal Act, either if we were to change or interpret it, who would be in charge? The General Assembly, as author of that instrument, would be competent to take decision. Similarly, if the Federal Act were violated, the General Assembly could be seized of the matter. I don't know what the source is. My guess is Travaskis. I'm not sure, because it says Ibid, but Travaskis is 1, Ibid is 3. I don't know what the source is, to be honest. It might not be Travaskis. But it's okay. No problem. In any case, the UN is in charge. What's the UN gonna do if anyone violates anything? The UN isn't doing anything today. The UN I've never seen, at least me, I've never seen, and I don't know if anyone, I've never seen a UN, I've never seen a military, UN military, going in and telling a country, stop. I've never seen that. They might go on microphones and they might express their views, but that doesn't do anything. You know, if you have people using tanks and military aircraft killing people and whatnot, what does the UN do? They can try to make peace amongst people, but the UN, what can they do? So international law is broken all the time. Look at Israel. Look at the Zionists. They've been overdoing what. First they said, oh, you know, we want to defend ourselves. After that, they made it in plain sight. We're just slaughtering people. That's what we're doing. Journalists, everyone. I remember seeing the video of the journalists. I believe they were journalists. They were at a building that had I'm not sure if it was a hospital, but it had just been bombed. It had just been bombed. There were journalists, just journalists. They were there. Next thing you know, a bomb or a rocket hit it from the sky. Zionists. The Zionists. That's what they did. So they just killed them like that. In your eyes, before you don't have to blink. Before the blink of your eye, or within a blink of an eye, boom, gone. Where's the UN? Holding a General Assembly. B. Ethiopia violates the Federation. Ethiopia's attitude toward the Federation was negative from the start. Emperor Haile Selassie, an able and crafty diplomat who had pricked European moral conscience by constantly alluding to their inexcusable condoning of Italy's fascist aggression in 1935, knew that few would dare accuse him of his flagrant aggression over the former Italian colony of Eritrea. So Haile Selassie, a crafty diplomat, an able and crafty diplomat, who had pricked European moral conscience by constantly alluding to their inexcusable condoning. their support for Italy's fascist aggression in 1935, he knew that few could accuse him, Haile Selassie, of flagrant aggression over the former Italian colony of Eritrea. Furthermore, the establishment of a democratic government in Eritrea was an affront to the absolutist, semi-feudal monarchy, which was not able to tolerate free press, multi-party politics, as well as trade union activities then taking root in Eritrea. So it was taking place in Eritrea. Free press, trade union activities and multi-party politics happened in Eritrea. It was going on while they had their kingdom, while Haile Selassie was running what you would call a kingdom of some sorts. Eritrea had what you can call a democracy. Ironically, few of the authors of the UN resolution on Eritrea expected Ethiopia to respect the decision. Ironically, few of the authors of the UN resolution, few of them expected on Eritrea expected Ethiopia to respect the decision. Few of them expected Ethiopia to respect the decision. This is how lightly they take such matters. If it was America in this danger, we have to do something. Well, America would speak for on its own. The UN probably wouldn't do anything for America. They can't do anything for anyone. But America, if it happened to America, every single day you'd see on the news just what's happening in America. What's happening in America. If America was in Eritrea's place, well, America couldn't be in Eritrea's place because it's already powerful. But let's just say that aliens, came from outer space, from Mars or whatever, and they came and they invaded America, One city in one state, one town, one farm, without any livestock or crops. But it used to be a farm. If the aliens went there. The world is an interesting place. So, ironically, few of the authors of the UN resolution on Eritrea expected Ethiopia to respect the decision. Many delegates hinted this in the 1950 debates. As one of his prophetic warnings, I don't like to use the word prophetic just out of respect for our prophets, but that's what it says here. My understanding is that one of the person's you can say perhaps resounding or legendary warnings, perhaps. As one of his prophetic warnings, the British administrator Travaskis wrote, Ethiopia in brackets, I don't know why it's in brackets, but perhaps it's because it's part of it's an excerpt, that's probably why. In any case, Travaskis, British administrator Travaskis, wrote, Ethiopia's temptation to subject Eritrea firmly under her own control will always be great. That's what's happening now. That's what's happening right now. Ethiopia's temptation to subject Eritrea firmly under her own control will always be great. Should she try to do so, she will risk Eritrean discontent and eventual revolt, which with foreign sympathy and support might well disrupt both Eritrea and Ethiopia herself. Though an autonomous Eritrea has implications of the federation, as studied and presented by a UN panel of jurists meeting in Hold on a second. Oh, sorry. I had two of the same page. Not one of them is not page 33. Of course, it was in page 33. Sorry, guys. Okay. So, Travaskis said that this is before the revolution. He said that Ethiopia's temptation to subject Eritrea firmly under her own control will always be great. Should she try to do so, she will risk Eritrean discontent, which she did, and eventual revolt, which happened, which, with foreign sympathy and support, might well disrupt both Eritrea and Ethiopia herself. Though an autonomous Eritrea has admittedly unwelcome implications for Ethiopia, so though autonomous Eritrea Though an autonomous Eritrea has admittedly unwelcome implications for Ethiopia, her need for a loyal and stable Eritrea far transcends any inconvenience a federal relationship may impose upon her. Her need for a loyal and stable Eritrea far transcends any inconvenience a federal relationship may impose upon her, Ethiopia. It is to her own interest, as well as Eritrea's, that the federation survives in the form its authors intended. It is to her own interest, as well as Eritrea's, that the federation survives in the form its authors intended. Meaning this is for their own good. In my understanding, this is what is intended. What is intended by this, what is implied, is that for its own good, this place needs to be Eritrea. The way that the authors intended the federation to be, this is how it should be. Because Eritreans, they reluctantly agreed for federation. Fine. We'll do the federation of 10 years. We'll be a part of it. After that, we get independence. Okay, so this was the agreement. So this would be in Eritrea's favor and Ethiopia's favor. But if Ethiopia pushes people and starts transgressing and starts crossing boundaries and red lines, it's going to cause a problem for Eritrea, but also to her. So where's the brain? Where's the government's brain? Now Ethiopia wants to go to war with Eritrea. Last I knew. I don't know what the latest update is. But that's what Abiy Ahmed wants the port. So what will happen? I don't want Isaias's face in the picture anymore. We want him gone. But what will happen in the future? Because Ethiopia, her lust and thirst for land that's not hers is quite great. Yet again, we already see that what the guy does in his country. What do you think he's going to do in Eritrea? Abiy Ahmed did not learn from Haile Selassie's mistake or from Mengistu's mistake. He didn't learn. The man didn't learn. He thinks he's Mr. Great. He thinks he's all powerful. The guy thinks he's all powerful. Ethiopia and her emperor were not disposed to heed. They didn't care. They were heedless. They were not disposed to heed. The destruction of the federal arrangement started with a systematic erosion, which, in the words of Tom Ferrer, was successfully carried out through bribery, intimidation, and where necessary, as it often was, in parentheses, naked force. So the destruction of the federal arrangement started with a systematic erosion, which, in the words of Tom Ferrer, was successfully carried out through bribery, intimidation, and where necessary, as it often was, in parentheses, naked force. You can find that in Tom J. Ferrer's War Clouds on the Horn of Africa, A Crisis for Detente, or Detent. That's a book, I believe, given that it's italicized, published in New York by the Carnegie Endowment, 1976, page 28. I'm going to end the video here, but I'm going to continue just to, I want to make these videos because I think I'm able to make these videos shorter. I also think that the audience is more receptive to shorter videos, so we'll do that. And I totally understand if that's the case, so I'll do that. I'm going to end it here, and then I'll continue after, and people can watch as they please. So I'll be back. But in any case, before I do, keep safe always. I'll see you very soon.